Welcome, Martin Nurminen.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Good to have you here. You have been the CFO at Basware since 2019, and before that, you were CFO of two other listed Nordic IT services and software firms, and you professionally grew up originally at IBM.
Yes.
Would you say it's the convergence of business, tech, and finance that has been the driver of your career?
Yeah, certainly over the years, that's the key common denominator across what I've been doing. Growing up in an entrepreneurial family, that's where the business side comes from. Thinking then about the role of technology, software, especially over the last years, what that can play in the world. And then obviously finance, I think it's a great place to make an impact for our companies and for our constituents.
Can you tell us shortly about Basware and how year 2023 were for you and how the beginning of 2024 has started?
Certainly. End of 2022 actually marked a significant milestone in the history of the Basware company. We became private, led by a consortium from West Coast of US, KKR. We were very, very pleased with the progress in 2023. Most importantly, our customers validating our renewed customer value realization focused strategy, as well as the growth numbers, but very importantly, our employee engagement metrics. So the new strategy that we operationalized in the beginning of the year progressed really, really well. And also I'm happy to say that 2024 has started on a very positive note.
That's awesome. And for us, or those who might not be familiar with Basware, could you in one sentence describe what Basware is well known for?
World leader in data-driven, AI-based accounts payable and invoice automation capabilities for enterprise customers globally.
Nice one. And lastly, I'm interested to know if you have a morning routine that you could share with me that you feel contributes significantly to being such a great person.
Well, thank you for the compliment. I think we all have our own. For me, probably it's that 5 to 10 minutes with that black cup of morning coffee and make sure that I stay grounded in my own personality and in my identity. World of business can be very, very fast moving, so it's important to remember who you are and what you stand for.
5 minutes with a great cup of coffee.
There you go.
All right,
that's
perfect. And I will soon let you on stage, but I just would like to notify the spectators at their home office that the deep dives, they are now rolling. And the next one is monitoring your work capital, which starts in 15 minutes. But with that, so nice chatting with you. And
likewise.
The stage is yours.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, folks, just very briefly about myself. CFO for Basware, now a little over 4 years. Before that, I said professionally grew up in IBM if I go back 20 years. Before Basware's gig, over the last 4 years, I have been the CFO for Effecto, as well as Soltech, more Nordic software and IT services companies. I represent Basware. Basware, as I already mentioned, is a world leader in accounts payable and invoice automation services. In terms of spend under management, as we think about what goes through our enterprise platform on an annual basis, we talk about north of 200 billion. In terms of invoice volumes that we drive through our platforms, we talk about 220, 230 million invoices right now on an annualized basis. As a company, we have endpoints, touch points with our customers' operations globally in over 190 countries. And today we employ approximately 1,300 people. I'm going to focus on 3 basic things today. First of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about the key economic drivers of the current situation, the world of concurrencies where we all as senior finance live in. Second of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about secular drivers, and what I mean with secular drivers is effectively topics that are impacting value creation for the longer run. Then third, I'm going to put a wrap around it and I'm going to offer a solution which in line with the headline of the presentation is true automation for the CFOs on how we in our capacities can really drive value with the true automation at its heart. So first of all, as we look at inflation and the macroeconomics over the last 2 years, even though inflation is starting to come down gradually, we still live certainly amongst a lot of cyclical pressures. I'm sure I speak on behalf of all of us when I say that that means that the pressure on profit, pressure on margins is very high for all of us. When we then combine that with the fact that at the same time, from a labor force perspective, we have many things going on. We are coming out from a period already before pandemic, but especially during the pandemic when we saw that workforce moved to working from home offices. We have several demographic changes happening at the same time where the working population is becoming smaller and smaller. I'm equally sure that all of you are feeling it one way or another in your companies, that we are also dealing with workforce management related challenges as CFOs, also relative to whole of our corporations, not only the finance team. When we then combine this with the fact that coming out from the pandemic, there was a very, very strong trend, obviously, that we saw across our supply chains, that certain industries, certain components, certain companies became extremely supply chain condensed. What that means in practice is that actually the power shifted quite a bit more towards the suppliers as opposed to the companies buying. When we think about 20 years ago, when I started, the tactics that we could apply towards some of our suppliers, I couldn't think today that I can apply those same heavy-handed tactics to my suppliers to really drive my own DPO. I actually need to be a partner with my suppliers because they have many customers to whom they can sell. So those are the kind of key things from a cyclical perspective that I'm certain that we all are dealing with. Profit pressures, topics with workforce management, topics with making sure that we can serve our suppliers on an excellent basis. At the same time, value creation is a long-term function. Value creation doesn't happen, obviously, of years and years to come. We believe, and I have to say at least, the key learnings from my time in Big Blue, and I would be the first one to say, is that sometimes we sacrifice the long term for the short term. I think we got to understand that the real long term game is what actually then will tell us did we succeed or not succeed. That's what I mean with secular drivers. Those secular drivers are the ones that we got to make sure that we address and work with to make sure our companies are successful for the longer run. 3 key things related to secular drivers that I want to speak briefly about. First, it's really all about the role of technology, of Gen AI, and what's that going to have. It's just really big. Second, I go back to the role of people. As I reflect back 5 or 10 years and how I coexisted with my team with technology, and what were the skill sets that I needed to have to be able to be successful in my job, relative to what they are today, 5 years later, 10 years later, the coexistence with technology is entirely different. There certainly is a trend that those companies who are able to figure out how do we help our people to coexist with technology, first of all, give them the necessary time to learn about new technologies. Second of all, work with them on concrete use cases on how we can put technology into play. We really at Basware believe that that is a second key secular trend that will differentiate those companies who will create value for the long run. Third key secular dimension in terms of value creation is regulation. Again, I know for any one of us in the room, it's not a new thing, but let me offer you a perspective through a lens that is relevant to Basware. We operate in the accounts payable and invoice automation industry globally. In Europe alone, between 2024 and 2027, there's 22 e-invoicing mandates that are gonna become a reality. Why should you care as senior finance leaders about e-invoicing mandates and what they mean? That's basically your day-to-day finance operations and the lifeline. That's about sending and receiving invoices in a tax-compliant fashion in the jurisdictions where you do business. Many companies still rely on paper. Many companies still rely on PDFs. I think we are in a good place in the Nordics, so probably for many finance leaders here in the room, e-invoicing rates are on 90s, but those ones who have international operations, you still might have businesses in Southern Europe or in South America, in Asia, in North America, where your e-invoicing rates are not as high. So regulation is something that is really impacting all of us. And again, one of those key drivers that if we as senior leaders do not act now, in 2 years, it might already be late. For example, in France, in Germany, in Poland, these mandates are fully driving ahead, and it's really important that we recognize that it's a reality where we live. So it's not only that we've got the current drivers, the cyclical demands, and that we have the secular drivers, but it's actually that in impact and in size and scale, these secular drivers are only going to intensify. First of all, just real quick, when we look at technology, it is really something that only the velocity and volume of data over the next couple of years will just again astronomically grow. Complexity of our own business operations, whether we are acquisitive or not, especially if we are acquisitive, but even in the base business operations, again, the velocity and volume of data will massively grow. I already mentioned the compliance aspects, the mandates that are coming into force, and then as we talk about empowering people, this workforce management dynamic, which to an extent is also a cyclical driver. As we look at that, how much could potentially be replaced with Gen AI, basically McKinsey estimates that approximately half of today's jobs could be replaced by Gen AI by 2030. Again, even if we would take just 50% of that, or even a third of that, it's still a massive, massive number, and goes back that how do we enable our organizations to have the time to focus on creating value on the back of these secular trends. Now, solution. Now that we have the enemy, let's then talk about what the solution is to fight the enemy. Very clearly, technology here is the answer. From Basware's perspective, we see very strongly that there's three key tenets that we need to have in place to address value creation for the long run. The right data and technology foundation. This is all about having AI and fraud detection capabilities built into your platform. Second, it's all about that we got to make sure that your organization is ready for the upcoming regulatory changes in the areas where you operate. And finally, we want to empower and upskill your teams. We want to give you the time and your people the time by automating your basic processes that you can then focus on growing the skills and capabilities of your AP and invoice teams so that they can be the data analysts, they can be the data architects that your company needs, they can be the business process analysts to help you really drive performance. Starting to put a wrap around this, seeing the timer here now also for the first time. Basically, three elements as we then think about against that macro context in terms of how Basware delivers value. First of all, it's really our core invoice and accounts payable automation platform. This gives you the capabilities to truly automate your invoice processing processes. Second, it's our global network, our complete coverage, our commitment to you to make sure that you are globally compliant with your invoice sending and receiving operations. And third, a key element of our offering, a key element of what we do with our customers is the expertise. Basware is 40 years old, and we have now, during the recent 2 years, again, renewed ourselves, remade ourselves for the era of AI, for the era of technology, for the era of SaaS on a global customer value focused way. Now, any story needs a couple of concrete examples, so I want to leave you with a couple of concrete case examples, some concrete numbers. I know we as finance people love numbers. We love to be concrete. We want to see where the rubber hits the road. It's not only about the talk, but it's also about the walk. Top left, AP team efficiency. As you can see, best organizations can get to over 30,000 invoices per AP clerk in terms of how much one person can manage in terms of invoices. Top right, you can see here e-invoicing rates close to 100, but probably most importantly for this discussion are the two metrics at the bottom of the slide. As we think about invoice processing times, best-in-class organizations can get to a point that less than 1 day from receipt of the invoice, that the invoice is ready to be paid, you have the control to make the decision. You want to pay that invoice, you want to try to get the early payment discount, or you want to hold the invoice to that 30 days, 45 days, 60, 90 days, whatever is your DPO. But you've got the power. Similarly, as we think about real two touchless processing rates, this is probably the most staggering number on a page. we see that in average, organizations are still only at approximately 1/5 of their invoices that are touchless. And with touchless, we mean that it's really touchless. From receipt to up until the point that it pays, nobody touches it. So you can imagine that if your touchless rate is 90 or if your touchless rate is 20, that what it does to the size of your team, what it does to the compliance aspects of that, the amount of human errors you have in the process, the difference is extremely, extremely significant. So the question now then becomes, what does all of this mean for a couple of our customers? I have two cases here. DHL, our longtime customer, we are a very, very proud partner of DHL on a global basis. We effectively run all of their accounts payable operation in over 50 countries, over 1 million invoices. We have been on a journey with them. DHL is very happy with us. We are very happy with DHL. And it comes to show that when we put our hearts and minds to it on a global basis, we really can move the needle. Second concrete example here is Heineken. Going back to the previous automation metrics, over 90% automatic matching rate, over 40% reduction in FTEs when we got to work together with Heineken on a global basis. So the significance really to all of the senior finance leaders here in this room and also in the webcast is that this is a core asset to you. Your accounts payable and invoice automation process can really become a business enabler for you. It can help you to integrate fast into new countries. It can give you the cost savings you need short term. And very importantly, it can help you to address the people aspects of your finance team and of your company. With that, key takeaways. As senior finance leaders, I believe we have an obligation to act and act right now. We have the cyclical pressures, we have the strategic secular drivers. Time to act against these forces is right now. Best-in-class finance teams are taking AP automation, true automation to the heart and using that capability to drive progress. Last, we at Basware would love to speak more with you. We have a couple of colleagues here with us today, and we'd love to speak more about your challenges, opportunities around accounts payable automation. With that, thank you very, very much.